Hey everybody, my name is Florence Hudson and I'm here with,
Mitch Parker from IU Health.
and I'm founder and CEO of a consulting firm called FD Hint. And I'm also very involved with IEEE and the Engineering and Medicine Biology Standards Group. And Mitch and I are both in the IEEE P2933 group on Clinical Internet of Things and TIPPSS, which stands for Trust, Identity, Privacy, Protection, Safety, and Security. So first of all, welcome to the inaugural year for the Security Leaders Village at DEF CON. And this is August 2021. And Mitch created this Security Leaders Village. And we're really happy that we're getting a chance to communicate some really cool things through this village. So what we're going to talk about today is TIPPSS, the new cybersecurity paradigm: trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security. So as we know, advanced technology is integrating and enabling the future, but it's also creating a whole bunch of risk. So we have the Internet of Things, we have sensors, we have connected healthcare, we have AI and ML, we have big data, we have all this stuff going on. And so there's a lot more opportunity to make good things happen, to improve healthcare, to make things safer, but we also have to be careful that we understand what the challenges could be, because everything is connected in cities, on campuses, and operational and information technology, and especially in healthcare. Implanted medical devices connected to software and services that are connected to something at the provider's location. And then the humans are roaming around the planet and connecting to other devices and other systems and other services. And there's really a lot to think about. There are a lot of challenges regarding who can get into what and how do you stop them. So as we know, as security people, everything is discoverable and everything is hackable. And now it's all connected, so it's worse. So we need to protect the data, the systems, and the humans. And you're probably familiar with a lot of these things. Healthcare device hacks, people can get into insulin pumps. The FDA did a recall on pacemakers, and all of this stuff is very risky. And the humans are at risk. And that's what we're really worried about. Vehicles can be hacked. You've probably seen, the old Prius hack, which was into CAN bus sitting in the back seat, but then, also being able to hack a Jeep that's driving on a highway and turning off the engine. Not good. Smart home devices, scientific devices, a lot of things, basically everything. So it's even beyond the standard systems we've always been trying to protect. So what could possibly go wrong? A lot, like we just talked about. So our top concerns are connected healthcare devices and data, because if you hack the device, you could quickly kill somebody. If you give them too much insulin or you turn off their pacemaker, they could steal the data. They could change the data so that you get the wrong amount of medicine. Smart cities, campuses, and connected vehicles are concerned because, once again, if you hack a connected vehicle, you can kill somebody. And then scientific and research device and data integrity. We know during COVID how some of the data was actually stolen, from different research areas. And that's really a risk to humans as well. So we need to protect the devices at the hardware and software level and from service hacks as well. We have to protect from physical health and safety risk, as well as financial risk and reputational harm, data theft, data integrity, and loss of privacy. And we need to do this at a defense in depth level. So the hardware level, the firmware level, the software level, and the service level, every level. So if they get in somewhere, there's something that's going to stop them next. And we also need to evolve policy and culture. And that's one of the reasons that Mitch and I are so involved with IEEE, because then we can help enable global standards that will protect more humans, more devices, and more data. And we've been working on this for quite a while, actually. In this 2015 report from KPMG, when I was in a different role, we were talking about security in the IoT ecosystem. And for new devices, security really needs to be designed into IoT solutions right at the start, but there's a lot of stuff already out there that we have to protect as well. But we do have to think at all these levels that we discussed and continually monitor it and stay ahead of the threat. So there's a lot for us to do, a lot more to worry about. So the idea behind TIPPSS is to make it really a new cybersecurity paradigm. We've talked about CIA for a long time. We talk about trust and identity and access management, but we really feel it needs to be broader. So trust, we know. Trust is allowing only designated people and services to have device or data access. Identity, for identity and access management experts, you know that you validate the identity of the people, the services, or the things so that you know that you can trust them, right? But now there's a lot more stuff out there. Privacy, ensuring device and personal sensitive data is kept private. Protecting devices and users from harm, as we said, physical, financial, reputational, providing safety for devices, infrastructure, and people, and of course, security of the data, the devices, and the people. And as you can see on this slide, there's so many things you get to worry about, and that's what we're worrying about. And we're really trying to create standards so that we can help protect people around the planet. So we've been focusing on this. You know, I talked about 2015, we were talking about this. We actually had our first workshop that created the TIPPSS name went in 2016, the beginning of 2016 at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And it was a joint workshop between IEEE, the National Science Foundation, DOE, DOD, DHS, a bunch of folks, industry, academia, and nonprofits. And so what we've been doing is increasing the messaging over time of TIPPSS for IoT, because we really want people to think about it and do it. So you can read a couple of these IEEE articles if you'd like. They look like they're behind a firewall, but it's free when you go there. You just have to sign in and get in. Enabling trust and security, TIPPSS for IoT, as well as wearables and medical interoperability, the evolving frontier. So it gives you a nice base for where we're going with this. So Mitch and I got started working on this a little after that, I guess a couple years ago. And we actually did some pre-standards work to say, so what is the problem here? What are we trying to solve? So after that, we created a preliminary TIPPSS framework, which we're refining now in this real working group for IEEE. So it's actually an IEEE and joint with Underwriters Laboratories working group called P2933. And it's focused on clinical Internet of Things, data and device interoperability with TIPPSS. And we have over 200 people from 22 countries and 6 continents, because we all know we have to fix this. We have device manufacturers, regulators, National Institutes of Health, providers, payers, patient advocates, pharmaceutical companies, technologists, EMR and EHR vendors, researchers, academics, startups, Hyperledger folks, and UL. So we have a whole crowd of people, and these are all the different people. This is the ecosystem that has to make this happen. So we have separate groups that are looking at these different pieces of TIPPSS: trust and identity, privacy, protection at the design-in level, safety on the ongoing level, security, use cases and scenarios, including human factors. So we see where the TIPPSS risks are and how we can make sure that we're protecting everything. Intelligent systems design at the whole system of systems level, including leverage of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and then data and device validation interoperability. So there's a lot to figure out, but we're making good progress. And Mitch is actually one of the co-vice chairs, and he does a great job helping all the teams move forward in this area. And it's really meaningful for him because he really sees how it can help at IU Health. So now that I gave you an overview of this, I'd like to pass it over to Mitch so he can make it real.
Thank you very much, Florence. And we are in a very tough situation as being a healthcare provider. And the big reason why is because we face some very immense challenges. We have a situation here, and I'll give you a little bit of background. IU Health is a 17 hospital health system, largest in Indiana, and one of the largest private employers in the state. We see hundreds of thousands of patients yearly. We have over 1,300 vendors, and we have a very large amount of medical devices spread across our hospitals, which range from everything from a 12-bed hospital in Frankfort, Clinton County, Indiana, all the way up to Methodist Hospital, the largest hospital in the state of Indiana. So we have everything from your rural critical access hospital all the way up to one of the largest academic medical centers in the United States. And with that comes significant challenges. The biggest one that we're seeing is when we have to verify and validate third-party devices to be able to operate and give us data and be able to provide that level of assurance to our medical leadership and senior leadership team that these devices are going to work as asked and that we are not going to present additional risk to our patients. This is what it comes down to. We have to be able to use these devices and not present that additional risk. So what we're finding are three key things. Number one, we're seeing a lot of snake oil out there of people claiming to be able to provide that level of risk analysis. And quite frankly, what they're providing, when we look at it, is nothing that we can't find on our own. All they do is just package it up to make it look nice while taking your money. Next thing we find is that there's no standard quantitative way to measure and provide risk reduction. For me, that's something very big. Reason being is because healthcare is a very quantitative field. For example, we do failure modes and effect analysis to take a look at risks in healthcare. We assign FMEA scores to risks. So I now have devices coming onto the network that I have completely subjective scores for risk. And to me, having that non-quantitative risk there means that I can't properly explain this to people who are very well-trained scientists and physicians and senior leadership who ask the question, how are you going to de-risk my network or de-risk our risk to patients? Can't do it. And the problem is that what's happened, we've pushed this on our vendors. And right now we're in a situation where they're actually not able to do what's needed to be able to reduce risk on their end because they're devoting a significant number of resources to trying to help health systems even understand what to do in the first place. Next slide, please. So we have several big driving factors here. And the first one, this comes from the implementation of enterprise resource planning systems, and a lot of pressure from the big four is separation of duties. So this is an accounting term that says that you make sure that people can't go above and abuse the roles that they're given to be able to, well, do bad things. That's the best way to put it. The other thing that we're being asked to do, and again, this is not just part of the HIPAA security rule, it's part of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants guidance, is to make sure that accounts are reviewed on a regular basis for appropriateness of access and whether they even need the access in the first place. And also, we have to make sure that when we put a device in the environment, clinical engineering does series of operational tests to make sure the device is in good operational function, that it works. We need to extend that to cybersecurity. And also, we're seeing a significant amount of increased validation requirements for these devices. And it's not coming just from the government. It's also coming from places like Joint Commission or the College of American Pathologists. We have to make sure that the devices we use meet these increased validation standards because every year regulatory agencies are coming after us with new standards. And these are not American rules companies. These are ones following international standards. And this is what we have to meet. So next slide, please. So here's the current situation as we see it in healthcare. First thing we see is we have a significant number of subjective questionnaires. Every health system and every third-party risk vendor has their own set of questions that they give. Here's the big deal that we're seeing from our contacts in the medical device manufacturer community. They are having to devote dedicated security resources, and they're pulling them from the product design teams to work on filling out these questionnaires for vendors. And the reason I know about this is, first of all, I've been told. Second of all, I've had senior leadership at 3 medical device companies complain to me. And the last part, I have had to fill these out on my own as IU Health is a vendor to other health systems. So I've had to fill out a 600 question questionnaire myself. Would I give that to my worst enemy? Probably. Would I give it to my friends? No. And these questionnaires measure risk at a point in time. They do not measure them on an ongoing continual basis. And that's what we're looking for. And to do that, you've got to take a look at the risk, starting with the product design and also extending over to operational management. So those two key areas, no questionnaire is really going to capture what you're doing. You have to have something that attacks it at a lower level. Next slide, please. So I like to use the dumpster fire meme to sum up how everything is going with our current state of third-party risk management, despite what a lot of people who want to sell you nice things and wear nice suits tell you. Next slide, please. So we wanted to do something better. We didn't want to just sit there and tell our senior leadership, this is the status quo, this is what we're going to do. We look at things at IU Health through our mission, which is to ensure that we improve the health of all Hoosiers, and our values of purpose, excellence, team, and compassion. And so having the purpose of being able to provide better medical devices and better quality medical devices to better serve our patients in our mission, and to provide better information for our team to make decisions on risk and patient care. We have good alignment here. And quite frankly, I don't find value in paying someone else to tell me what my risk is. I need to be able to understand the risk at a level well enough to align with our mission and values, to align with our purpose, and for me to be able to sit down and explain it to people that make the key decisions about patient care. And cybersecurity now is something for us that requires us to be able to explain it in a good, consistent, quantitative manner to people that make decisions based on quantitative analysis. And right now, we're not there, despite what some people will tell you. And the risk management process we have is not aligned with product engineering. It's not aligned as well as the 510K is. I can have 510K discussions with our chief medical information officer all the live long day. I can't have them about cybersecurity right now. That's something we need to change to be able to provide that leadership that our organization needs to be able to live according to our mission and live the values, as Dennis Murphy puts it. We don't want to do improper due diligence. We care about our patients. We care about the job that we do with security. We have to do a better job. And to do a better job in this case, we have to be upfront. And instead of having an adversarial relationship, working with our vendors to lead, to develop, to build a better way. Next slide, please. So give a little bit of background. We've done a lot of research in the third-party risk area for a number of years. And in 2018, I gave a presentation at HIMSS 18 on RFID security in the academic health center environment, which was actually based upon work that we had done at one of our hospitals with putting RFID in one of the pharmacies. So we did some great work there. And this got us in touch with a woman named Susan Ramanat, who went to Princeton with Florence, and Susan made the introduction to us. And the next thing you know, I'm working on that paper with Florence in 2018, and that pre-standards paper led to what is now P2933. And I will tell you, one of the first things I did when that paper was published is I gave it to our CIO at the time and said, this is what I'm working on. This is the end result. And the goal is to align with our mission and values to provide better patient care through more secure medical devices and a quantitative methodology we could use to evaluate risk. Our leadership is behind what we're doing here because ultimately this leads to better outcomes that support the mission of the organization. Next slide, please. So COVID taught us one thing in 2020. The future is coming incredibly fast, and the future is BYOD. Health systems are not going to own all of the devices that are going to be providing information that physicians will be using to make decisions on a patient's care. The sooner we realize that, the better off we are. BYOD is going to come to patient care. It is already here. We're not using it that much, but in the next few years, it's going to be here, and it's going to be a mix of patients' own devices, devices from third parties, and devices owned by health systems, such as the one I work for. We have to be able to evaluate them because the current medical device solutions we have, they work great if you own the device and if it's in your four walls. As soon as you get past those four walls, it gets a lot more complicated. And we have to be able to quickly apply these standards and security to devices we don't own. So when I talk to people about what we're doing, I talk a lot about lamps. Florence gave me this methodology, and I'm going to repeat and use this until the day we don't have electrical plugs. When you buy a lamp at whatever store you buy lamps at, you take a look at the plug and you see the UL tag on that plug. I want the decisioning process for medical devices to be as simple as walking into whatever store you choose and looking at the plug to see if it's got the UL certification on it. Because ultimately, for us to be able to function in even the present we have now, or 5 years into the future, we have to be there. Next slide, please. So that is why we like TIPPSS so much, because it's an extensible framework. It leverages existing work we are already doing, and it encapsulates what we need. And more importantly, we don't think about Ethernet when we plug in, when we still have wired devices, or when we connect to a wireless network. We don't think or have to do conformance testing to make sure that the device can connect to Wi-Fi. It does. When we plug in a device to Ethernet, unless we have a serious problem, we know it'll work. And Ethernet in itself, the 802.3 standard, is very extensible. It goes back 40 years, over 40 years. It's probably older than I am. And the reason it's so good is because it builds on an extensible standard. And that is the goal of what we're trying to do here with TIPPSS. We want to build that good set of controls that everyone agrees upon, that we can apply to these devices, so that a lot of the third-party vendor risk work that we're doing now can be put in the past, and we can go forward with a quantitative method that comes with IEEE and UL. Those are names people know. And when I say that, it's not this third-party firm said so. It's the same people that Joint Commission beat you up for if you don't have UL certified electrical strips. It's the same people that certify your electrical strips. So that's what we're looking for. And again, when I have the conversations with our vendors, several of whom actively contribute to 2933, they know IEEE, they know UL. They don't know all these other little firms out there. This is what they know. This is what their engineers follow. And when I have those conversations, it makes them a lot easier. Next slide, please. So what are our goals? Every single day, a device is stuck in evaluation hell because we don't have the documentation we need to perform a quantitative risk analysis, is a data that's not being used on a patient. And to me, that is unconscionable. I want to reduce that time significantly. I want to make the device validation process simpler so that we don't have to take as many steps, and that our evaluation process focuses more on the physicians and the caregivers that actually use the devices to make sure that they're familiar with it, and that we give that time back so that we spend it on workflow and understanding how the device works and better using it within the electronic health record. That's our goal. And to do that, we need to have those better standards there, because we can't have standards all over the place. We've got to have one good extensible set that's built upon existing standards that we're already using. Because another big problem we see is there's a disconnect between the engineering side and the product side. We want to get that gap significantly narrowed to do a better job. And we don't want to have adversarial relationships with our vendors at all, because the truth is we need each other. And a lot of what we're seeing in cybersecurity these days pits us against each other. And that's not good for anyone, because the people that lose out when you've got people thinking, oh, stupid customer or stupid vendor, the people that lose out are the patients. And we don't want that. What we want is people working together because we all have the same common goal: get better care for the patient, and make sure we do it the right way, and make sure we do it in a way that reduces risk. And this also allows these medical device vendors that we work with to leverage resources from, instead of filling out questionnaires, having them actually work on product security, because they've pulled resources off. And I've had this conversation. I've two vendors have told me this. So, and they're not small companies, and I know they have people listening. And since I don't have clearance from your legal departments to say their name, I'm not going to. But regardless, we're listening. TIPPSS is part of what we're doing to help you out, and also to help the patient out. So next slide, please. Thank you all very much. And again, I hope you see how we're using our leadership principles and our alignment with mission and values to bring something forward that's going to really help out and hopefully provide the patient with better care according to our mission. So with that, back over to you, Florence.
Thanks a lot, Mitch. Great job. And I love when you explain how, the business goals, the patient goals, the technical needs are all aligned when you talk about TIPPSS and how it's going to make things better. So thank you so much for sharing that. So as we mentioned, we've been messaging this for a few years now, and we talked about a couple of the IEEE articles. We also wrote a book, and it's called Women Securing the Future with Tips for IoT. As we know, we want to get more women, in a very welcoming cybersecurity environment. So we're highlighting them here. And in this book, we have people from all over the planet and from different organizations, CERN in Europe, Cisco, government entities such as the city of San Francisco, industry partners like GlaxoSmithKline and IBM, a number of academic institutions, as you can see, venture capitalists. We even had a judge that wrote a chapter, which is very interesting because as we look at this world and the challenge and opportunity in TIPPSS, there's a lot of regulation, right? There's increasing regulation with privacy, there's increasing regulation with IoT and security, and we think that that's going to continue. So it's very important to have a feel for it. So this book is readily available. You can get an ebook, you can get the hard copy. If you're at an academic institution, you may have a package with Springer, you might be able to download it for free. I know at my institution, the students can. So it's very interesting. And we're about to come out with a new one later this year, which is going to be Women Securing the Future with Tips for Connected Healthcare. They'll be very specific about healthcare. The first one was kind of a range of different use cases. So that's what we wanted to share with you today. We're delighted that you're joining us. We're delighted that you're participating in the Security Leaders Village. We're really excited about this, and we're hoping that it can grow to help leaders all over the world to make things more secure. So Mitch, any last words?
Thank you all very much, and we hope you learned a lot and have some takeaways. And if you're interested in participating in P2933, please contact Florence or myself. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Yep. And you can find us on LinkedIn. You can follow us on Twitter. And we look forward to hearing from you. Have a great DEF CON.